Today I want to talk about F1. It wasn't a bad movie, but I didn't think it was a particularly good movie either. I like a lot of people really liked it and they were comparing it to Top Gun Maverick, and granted I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick and you can count that against me if you like, but I don't know. Like a lot of people seem to really like F1, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just I was watching it and I was the whole time I watched it. Well, okay, so here's like my first problem. The first problem is with the main character. Brad Pitt, good actor. I loved him in Bullet Train. I haven't watched much of his other stuff, but Bullet Train, very well done. Obviously, he's a talented actor, and this isn't anything against him specifically. This is just to say that his character that he played was so, I don't know. I couldn't sympathize with the character. There was nothing to sympathize with. I'm struggling to remember the name of the main character, which doesn't mean anything. I forget the names of characters I love all the time. Well, I'll just call him Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt, he's in this movie a guy who got into an accident as a racer, due to his own reckless driving strategy, which gave him a lot of success. And then because he did that, the consequence of that was that he eventually ended up hurting himself pretty badly, and then he ended up not racing for like 30 years. And then during that time, like mentally, nothing, he didn't change anything. Like mentally, he just kind of kept doing racing. You know what I mean? So it's not like he was in a low place. It's not like he was broken because of that. It's not like he learned his lesson. He just kind of went with it and just started doing something else. And there's nothing wrong with that in a character, but for a main character, that's a really strange way to deal with that. And then later on, and this is a common theme for this character, because throughout the entire story, bad things happen to him, challenges arise, and he doesn't change. He's like the exact same fucking person at the end of the movie as when he started. He's not any less of an asshole. He's not even really an asshole. It's like the movie's trying to tell me he's an asshole. He's not really an asshole. He's just kind of like, he's got that kind of charming sarcasm vibe going, but that's not being an asshole. That's a different critique. That's not as big as what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that throughout the story, he's not really challenged in any significant way. Like at the end, towards the end, I was thinking, holy crap, because if you've seen the movie, he gets injured at the end. And this is not a spoiler-free critique at all, but he gets to this point where he can't drive, because turns out because his manager discovered that he'd been hiding a serious medical issue, that racing would put him at serious risk of actually dying. And so obviously in good conscience he can't let him drive. And that makes sense. And it's there's no fucking way they're gonna let him drive. And then he just off screen comes back with some lawyer papers that allow him to keep driving. And we didn't even get to see that happen. We didn't even get to see him address the consequences of why, we don't see him think about the consequences, or even they don't affect him at all. There are no consequences, is what I'm saying. There are no consequences to why he suddenly, because he everything that happens to him he deserved. He earned and gained due to his actions and due to his recklessness, perhaps strategic recklessness, but recklessness all the same. He the consequences were fair, and even if they weren't fair, they should still be addressed. And he never does. He never grows. He never changes as a character. He's always charming. He's always Brad Pitt. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't really know what Brad Pitt's like in real life, but he's the same person throughout the entire movie, and that really annoyed me. Because it's just everything just seemed to work for him, and it's I get that there. I'm not saying those people don't exist. People who nothing really phases them, but even then, it's there's something underlying that, and the only bit of the only bit of actual character work we got happens in a single conversation between him and the love interest, who that whole romance subplot was so ham-fisted. I did not what was even the point of that? That didn't, to me, that I didn't even see the point of that. I mean, I get it, it's a subplot, but like it didn't feel like a very well earned subplot. And there was like that one random girl who was part of the blanking on the racing term here, but like the pit crew, I think is what they're called. And you know, she was messing up basically, and Josiah, who we'll talk about in a second here, who's the other lead in the movie, and he's a famous young racer in this movie. You know, he's being kind of mean to her, and so she has this very small, very shallow arc that just I didn't see a point in it being in there, where she just, you know, she becomes more confident in her abilities, and she, you know, stops freezing and stuff like that. And it's like, what are we doing? What is like we don't get me wrong, there's value in that sort of a subplot, but focus on your main character first. And Brad Pitt just didn't have any sort of change, like at all. And I think that's part of the appeal. I suspect one of the reasons, there are two reasons I suspect this movie was as popular as it was. And neither had to do with like particularly clever storytelling. The first one is race cars are cool. And I just want to say, I'm critiquing the story here. The like cinematically, this movie was phenomenal. Like I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy watching the driving sequences. Those were my favorite parts of the movie. They shouldn't have been my favorite parts of the movie. They should have been, like, I should have loved them, but I should have loved them within the context of the story. But, you know, standing alone, they were still really well filmed, very well, you know, planned out throughout the film. Second reason I think people really like the movie is particularly, like, men. This isn't a bad thing, by the way. I'm not judging anyone if this is why you liked me. Like, you know, we all have, I'm just saying, like, I suspect this was the subconscious reason a lot of people liked this movie, and this is purely a theory. But specifically middle-aged men just really liked Brad Pitt's energy. They really liked his relationship with Josiah as like the roughened, you know, roughened, takes no shit from nobody, but like, you know, he's super cool and he's like super slick and like, I don't know, nothing phases him kind of guy, you know. And he's a man of like values and like you gotta, but he's also a man who's not afraid to take risks. And it's like I just felt like all of those like qualities that a lot of men value in being a man, that they value in themselves, or that they perhaps wish they had in themselves, would really enjoy watching Brad Pitt and like encapsulate that full like archetype throughout the entire movie, even if he never changes as a character, even if like he doesn't grow or learn anything. Like he's a bigger than life kind of archetype, really, that I think a lot of men would watch, and they'd watch how he deals with these problems. And he's doing something, you know, pretty cool, which is driving, and he's doing it his own way, and he, you know, and they just like that sort of thing. And so obviously they enjoy watching the movie. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that doesn't mean that the writing was good. That just means that the writing was geared towards a specific kind of person. And so because of that, it didn't need to be particularly good. Josiah was I liked his character. He was okay. He was so unbelievably immature. Just, you know, I'm aware it's been a while since I've seen this movie. I didn't write any notes or anything. This is all just, you know, this is like a month-old set of incoherent, you know, non-structured critiques that I've had about the movie. And they're like a month old now, and I haven't watched the movie or really even thought of it since. So I could be missing details. I could have forgotten important things. I could just be flat out wrong. But I don't think I'm this wrong. I think I do remember exactly, roughly, how I felt leaving the theater, and I do remember articulating out loud what I didn't like about it. So I know at least some of the stuff I'm saying I still believe is true. The pacing, like, okay, so like here's another example about how Brad Pitt's character wasn't really challenged at all in the movie. His whole thing is, I'm not doing it for the money, I'm doing it because I love racing. Which is cool, I guess, but really boring. He's not flawed in almost any, like, meaningful way. So later on towards the end, there's this one character who's not a villain, he's not really an antagonist, he's kind of just a scummy character who was given no build-up, but he just kind of like shows up in like the third act, Well, he doesn't show up, but like he's established as kind of the bad guy-ish in the third act. Because what he does, he sabotages the racing. He sabotages their team in order to get on the good side with a board of directors, or with some sort of board of investors, in order to make his own racing team and just make a shit ton of money. Roughly. I don't remember the exact details of it. Sorry if I'm messing that exact plan up. But the point is that he's a scumbag and he betrays them. And he approaches Brad Pitt's character and he basically tries to get him to join his new team, to quit this old team after this last race and come join his team, and together they'll make a shit ton of money. And the problem with this is that it's not even remotely tempting to Brad Pitt's character. Like, it's been clear the entire movie, he does not give a shit about money. He's too good for money. Maybe that's a little condescending of me to say it that way, but that's roughly how it comes across, is like he's not into it for the money. He's into it for the pure love of the sport, which is, again, like, you know, a lot of guys I feel like would really enjoy seeing a character like that. But he has no flaws at all. And so when he ultimately denies that, denies that offer and he turns on that guy, it's not surprising to any of us. None of us are shocked that he didn't do that. It's not meaningful that he said no. That doesn't mean anything to us because he doesn't care about money. So it wasn't any challenge or any sort of difficult for him to deny that opportunity to make a shit ton of money because he's never cared about money. Like if Brad Pitt's character was a character who was really in it for the money, if the character was really in it for the money, and then at that point when he receives the offer, he ultimately denies it because he realized that he loves driving and he loves this family that he's made with this team, and he values that more than he values money, or more than he used to think he valued money, that would be meaningful. That would resonate with people. But that's not what they did. And that just kind of pisses me off because, like, you know, it felt like there was structure here to make it truly compelling. All you really needed to do was give Brad Pitt's character some sort of a flaw and then just kind of rework the story around that. And you could still have most of the major beats in this movie. But the fact that they didn't do that just meant that throughout the movie, I had no emotional anchor. I did not really care about any of the characters. More minor note, the dialogue in this movie was getting on my nerves quite a bit. I remember, not all of it, not every line, but like every fifth or so line, someone would say something that you could tell the writers thought was really clever, or that it was like really snarky, or that it was really like, you know, like it was a zinger. And I'm just like, and I could tell every time. And it was really annoying. And again, it felt like they were really trying to cash in, maybe not cash in. I don't think they were doing it manipulatively. I think this is just, you know, the writer was just thinking this way and they, you know, prioritized some things over others. Not saying anything like, you know, they did it maliciously or purely out of greed to milk the audience or whatever. But you could kind of tell that they were really leaning into that, you know, Brad Pitt's character is a cool guy. And there were some interesting editing choices, mainly with pacing. Like Josiah, he gets into a bad accident. Mainly because of Brad Pitt. Of course, the movie immediately absolves any sort of guilt that Brad Pitt's character could feel by the only injury that Josiah gets from this accident. His car literally flies through the air and like explodes. But the only injury he gets somehow is his hands are burned. So he can't drive for like a couple of months, and then he comes back like it's nothing. And we don't see Brad Pitt's character really feel any guilt over this because Josiah doesn't hold it against him at all because, you know, that'd be conflict and we can't have that. Josiah's character acknowledges, yes, Brad Pitt's character told me what to do, like to make this maneuver that was risky, but I'm the one who messed it up. I didn't do it properly. So it's my fault that it happened, and I'm not really angry at him. I'm angry at him for a different reason. I'm actually angry at him because while I was gone, he was getting popular without me. And now I'm the one who's kind of left in the dust. And so he deals with that by the moment he comes back, the first race, he immediately sabotages Brad's car and just like, you know, ruins the race for both of them because they're on the same team. They're trying to win the race together. And he just fucks it up for both of them purely out of jealousy. And then when Brad Pitt's character is, and I'm just going to keep calling him Brad Pitt's character, when he's, confronts Josiah and he's like, hey, you fucking idiot, why did you do that? Josiah just kind of brushes it off and doesn't give an answer. And then later on, they have a conversation over dinner and it's just solved. It's just solved. And also, full transparency, I didn't actually watch the conversation that happened over dinner. I went to the bathroom at that scene. I don't think whatever happened in that scene is enough to absolve any of the issues I've just mentioned. Although it probably would be nice if I had seen that scene. I'm not really angry. I'm just, a little annoyed that people don't think about this stuff as much as I do. But I think we all have those things. I think we all have something we wish other people thought about as much as us for, varying reasons. And this is kind of that thing for me is, movies, stories. I think they're important. I think what they say is important and the message they tell is important. And how we respond to what Hollywood and filmmakers make is important because we're giving them feedback. When we tell them we fucking love your movie, that tells them, oh, then we should keep making this movie. And we tell them this by, with our positive reviews and, with our money. And so when we don't hold them to a higher standard of storytelling and we just settle for things that are cinematically amazing, but storytelling wise, subpar, we give them an excuse. And in fact, it's not even their fault at that point because, ultimately they're a business or, they're funded by business people. And they are incentivized to continue making movies of lesser and lesser quality because they can get away with it. And we're letting them do that. F1 wasn't that bad. There are other movies that definitely do not deserve the praise that they get, in my opinion. I'm aware this is all very subjective at the end of the day, but I think I have good reason for my opinions. I'm aware I have an opinion, but some opinions are better than others. Anyway, if you liked F1, that's fine. I'm not saying anything bad about you. Or even about the movie, as a movie, it was a fun experience. I'm still glad I watched it. It wasn't a waste of time. It just felt like it wasn't what it could have been, which is always frustrating for me. Anyway, I've been talking long enough and my nose is so itchy. Oh my god. Oh, I'll see you. Have a nice day.